Hello, happy 2023. All of our patients at True Women's Health and maybe any other visitors that are out there. Tonight, we're going to be talking about health, but in a little bit of a different context. Tonight, we're going to talk about goal setting and kind of what that means in terms of um, your health, your personal goals, maybe some relationship goals. So I'm really excited because I think, a lot of times we talk about a lot of heavy medical things. And for some patients, that can be super relevant, but everyone sort of has some sort of health goal, right? New Year's resolutions tend to be a huge thing for folks. So let's start talking about goal setting. And tonight, I'm going to welcome our psychologist that actually works with us at True Women's Health, Mary Jo.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year to you too. Mary Jo, welcome to True Women's Health Facebook Lives.
This is great. This is
They
great.
t-
I'm
they
happy to
they
be here,
tend to
Dr. Egan.
yeah, they tend to be super fun. And if you are a patient that has been on before, or if you're a new patient, as always, we are here to answer questions. So in the comment section, you can always post a question as Mary Jo and I are talking, and we will try to get to it as soon as possible. But we hope that we have kind of a fun conversation. So, Mary Jo, I know obviously you work a lot with patients in terms of doing some goal setting, most of the time probably around mental health things, no?
Yeah. Mental health things, life issues, going back to school, attaining other life goals. So it's a variety. Goals are kind of the core of what we do, of how we operate.
Yeah,
That in
and I know
healthcare, it's in everything that we do.
yeah, and I know you've worked with a lot of different women, not just in a clinical setting, but also more like in a professional setting as well.
Right. Yep. I do some things. My psychology role at True, and then I also do organizational psychology as well. So I work with a lot of
So you
women who are aspiring to be leaders and how to grow their leadership abilities. So we do a
so
lot of
you
goal
definitely have
work
a lot of
there.
yeah, you have a lot of experience in doing some goal work, which is why we wanted you on tonight to kind of talk about it from this context. So when as a doctor, when I'm talking to patients about goal setting, what I'm really hoping to do is obtain a few goals myself, right? So one, I think it's helpful to sort of organize our thoughts around what we really want and what our health goals can be. And two, I think it can be really helpful because we see a lot of patients who can feel a bit overwhelmed with some of their thoughts and feelings about their health goals, and maybe they aren't health goals in particular, but they may be particular symptoms or diagnoses that they have. So, I mean, obviously, I'm an obesity medicine doctor. I talk to patients a lot about weight. That tends to be a very common reason why people come to see me. And it can be hard to just sort of throw out, like, I want to be helpful, I want to be healthy, right? I just want to lose
Mm.
weight. And we really do try to narrow it down and organize sort of our thoughts around that context.
That's really smart, and I say smart being no pun intended, because part of the way to take the overwhelmingness out of goals is to set smart goals. And by smart goals, we mean goals that are specific. Because, like you say, if I just say I want to lose weight, what does that really mean? So I want that goal to be specific. I want it to be measurable, so that I know when I'm making progress, when I'm achieving that. It has to be attainable. Don't say, I want to lose 75 pounds by Valentine's Day, because that's not attainable. And it has to be relevant, because if it's relevant to me, it's important to me, that's going to motivate me. And then I want it to be time-based or time-oriented. So if you kind of wrap it up in that, it takes a little bit of that being overwhelmed out of it.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I love the word attainable because in the weight loss world, they actually did this study, and what they did was they looked at all commercial programs for weight loss. So, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, all of them, right? And what they did was is they measured what was kind of said in their programs to what was actually obtained in randomized control trials. And lo and behold, what you would guess is what was said in commercials was like double or triple the weight loss amounts that they actually saw in randomized control trials, which patients don't know, right? Because all they hear is, oh my gosh, I
Right.
did this one program and I lost, 40 pounds in 3 weeks. And that can then be in their head sort of this attainable goal. And it can feel really frustrating them when you're not there, but you've even still lost weight. and so it can just feel frustrating. So it can be
Right.
helpful to use professionals such as myself or other sort of providers at, True, just to kind of get a sense of what really is attainable. And it can be okay to
Exactly.
start with maybe a goal that you don't think, that you don't have the knowledge bank to sort of say is obtainable, but then kind of use this as a guide and sort of talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that when it is attainable and maybe you do it in small steps, you feel a little bit of a success. And we need to feel those steps of success along the way in order to stay motivated to keep going. So you have that big goal at the end, but you need to take some time in the middle. And when can I celebrate that? What do I celebrate? So knowing what's important to you is important too. What motivates you? So how are you going to reward yourself when you meet these little goals along the way?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, when we talk about the small rewards for doing things, because I think, a lot of the times when we see patients, we get a sense that this not being able to obtain this goal really is causing them a lot of distress. Right. And so one reason why I think goal setting can be helpful, and particularly using the SMART goals, is it really can help stop that like rumination surrounding a topic. So, when we say rumination, right, we think of this, just that constant thought thread that's running through us, right? And a lot of the times, a lot of women can say it's like that, like your eyeballs pop open at 3 a.m. and your mind's just spinning and spinning and spinning, right? Or
Yeah.
like we're driving to the, home from work after that meeting and we're just spinning and spinning. And so particularly surrounding, health reasons, what can be really helpful for a goal is just to sort of put it down on paper and give it some context, right?
Exactly.
And we hope that we then can maybe prevent some of that constant spinning that's happening surrounding some thoughts. So
And
I
part of
love we're having shout outs all the way from all over the world. I feel like it's amazing.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
All the way from Guatemala. Yeah. And hello to all of everyone out there.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have another comment from Linda, which I actually agree how helpful journaling can be, right, in terms of goal setting.
I think Linda was reading my mind because you were talking about ruminating, and ruminating it gives us a sense of control, even though we're spinning our wheels in the mud, because that's basically what ruminating is. But we do it because it gives us a sense of control. And in the end, we all need control. We're all control freaks, whether we want to admit it or not. We feel more secure when we feel like we're in control. So when I set little goals and I measure them, and maybe I bring in an accountability partner. I had one patient that I worked with successfully on weight loss. Part of what helped her was having some accountability partners. She went to the whiteboard at work and put up, didn't say the actual number, but here's the 10 pounds that I want to lose. And every week when she weighed in, she'd put it on that whiteboard at work so her colleagues could see. So it was like this public commitment. And then had a really good friend who was also working on weight loss. They texted each other every Saturday when they weighed in and said, this is where I am. So that kind of helped get that sense of control and that accountability, and then gave them an outlet for the feelings that part of what the ruminating comes from.
Yeah. And I I think sometimes even to yourself, right? So I sometimes have patients do some food journaling in terms of thinking about what they're eating. And they'll be like, well, do you want to see the numbers? And I'm like, honestly, I don't, because part of this is, right, you sort of being held accountable to yourself of knowing that you're just writing it down, right? Because I honestly don't, I care, but I don't care exactly how many ounces of steak you had. It's really you knowing, kind of holding yourself kind of accountable and objectively, sort of kind of what we're saying, which is interesting.
Yeah. And then you're not kidding yourself either. When you write it down in that food journal and you look at it at the end of the day and you go, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was eating that much, especially maybe that first week where you're taking baseline.
Or if you're like me during the holidays when life goes to hell in handbasket, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. All the extra cookies around. That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So, Mary Jo, we're going to run through a little bit of kind of how you get started, right? Because I think sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming just to start with a blank slate. And so for us at True, even if you didn't have a specific goal in mind, how we get started is we have everyone sort of pick what we call a milestone event, right? So this is some place that you want to see yourself in the future. So for some folks, maybe it's a holiday, an anniversary, a vacation. Some people, it's just changing of the seasons or a time when they know they, will be around others socially. So we have everyone sort of pick what we call their milestone event. And then the next piece that we talk about is how do you want to see yourself at that event? And we call this your picture of self. What is your picture of self and what matters to you? How do you want to feel on the inside? How do you feel about how you feel on the outside, right? And it's funny because we'll get so many folks that think we want to hear one thing over another, and in reality we don't. This is patient driven. This is how
Right.
you want to feel and how you want to look, and maybe has nothing to do with looks or how you just want to sort of feel it in your own skin, right? And we have some patients that we even just say just feeling less stressed, right? And it has nothing to do with weight or blood pressure or blood sugars. It's just feeling better, and we really work on sort of understanding what that means.
Yeah. I think your key right there too that you said is it's up to you. It's up to the patient. With any of this, you don't want to be doing it because what you think someone else wants you to do, or how you think someone else wants to see you. The motivation has to be yours, for sure.
And I think that's what's so unique a little bit about our practice, because I do think where traditional primary care models sort of go a bit awry is, patients will come into the office and I'll have my checklist and I'll be like, okay, check, check, check. This is what I care about in terms of your health. Go do these things that I care about.
Right.
And we'll see you in a year. And I know that's just not how our providers think in our office. And we really deeply care about trying to figure out what are important to women in our office, and understanding where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, the providers in our office can be part of that accountability, because you've got that full relationship there. And somebody with good perspective and somebody that doesn't have a hidden agenda. That's a true partner. Somebody who can have good perspective.
Yeah. And I will fully admit, we definitely do try to pull things out of people. We'll sort of ask more probing because we really like people to get kind of specific about where their mind goes and honestly what brought them there, right? It's funny, sometimes we'll get in a little bit of a circle of, this is why I'm coming in, and then we go, and actually that's not at all why they came in. And, they thought that someone told them that they should do this, and it can be helpful to kind of go on this journey together.
That one of the first things I learned in graduate school and learning to be a therapist is the presenting problem is never the real problem.
Yeah.
So that's what you're talking about is we listen for, that's the first sentence, but let's get 7 sentences in and then we get down to what we're really going to be dealing with.
Yeah. And so if you're a patient and you're sitting and trying to write this out for yourself, at home right now, kind of think about that, right? When you had that initial goal sort of pop into your head, maybe kind of be a little bit more curious with yourself of how did that get there? And is that really what I'm wanting today? Right. And sort of seeing, kind of being your self-therapizing, right. And understanding kind of where you're at.
Well, and that's another good component of journaling. When I encourage people to journal just about feelings, it's just write free for all.
Yeah.
Don't write like somebody's going to read it. Just whatever comes out of the end of your pen or the tips of your fingers. And then go back and read it about 3 days later, and you'll have a different perspective. And that may not be as important as you thought it was, or it may be really important.
It's so interesting. And, a lot of the times it can be really helpful that to tap into some of your motivation behind why you are there, right? So sometimes folks will say, I just want to be healthy. What does that mean? And it can be hard to sort of all of us want to be healthy, right? But really understanding where that's coming from. And we see that a lot with people who have a strong family history of, whatever disease process. So we see a lot of people that may say, I have a lot of people in my family have diabetes. I don't want to have diabetes. I know I'm higher risk. let's get down to the bare bones of what that means and how I can prevent that. And so it can be helpful to reflect on your health goals of what's really truly motivating you in that
Right.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And again,
Rachel made some comments about, learning the hard way, which is totally true. And kind of, isn't that all true for all of us women? I feel like we're all learning the hard way. And, just kind of allowing her body to be where it is. And I love it. Goals like confidence and feeling in control when I eat are equally important. Amen, Rachel. As
love
everyone
that.
knows, I really care a lot about people's relationship with food. And that in itself can be a great goal, right? Not thinking so much about what my actual number of pounds is, but am I in control of my food processing, right? As I tell people all the time, you control the food doesn't control you, right? And that can be kind of an interesting place to be in, especially if you've never been there, which some of us haven't been. So,
well, I think that's what makes it really healthy and well-rounded is that.
Yeah.
It's about my whole relationship, not just achieving this number, because that's kind of hollow. That's kind of shallow. It's got to be deeper than that.
And in addition to tapping into your motivation, sometimes it can be really helpful to find a health role model, right? Some other maybe woman in your life, person in your life that is maybe, a little bit ahead of you in the game, not necessarily older or more mature, but ahead of you. Maybe they already had lost 20 pounds, or they really did go to, made their exercise goals, or maybe they did sort of turn their health around. And so sometimes I think it'd be really helpful to find sort of a goal role model. Mary Jo, I sort of overheard you talking the other day about, women in particular, because we're such badasses, have really made our way into the C-suite. And there's a lot of women that are thinking about retiring, but they don't really have great role models for what that looks like. And how do you sort of scale back this job that you love and you've made your career and life out of, but you still want to be, relevant and have an identity. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit more to that, of how kind of what you've seen sort of out there in the workforce?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought. Men have been retiring successfully from successful roles, senior level roles, for generations. Women don't have a lot of role models of women who have left the C-suite or a long-term career and have done that successfully and gone on into something else. So what the observations are is many women are waiting too long, and they're not going out with grace. They're not evolving into that next phase of their career with grace. Part of it is the lack of a role model. Part of it is women are nurturers. So our career is our baby, and we want to leave our baby in good hands, and we don't really know how to do that. Yeah. And then, as you mentioned, it's being relevant. We struggle with, how am I relevant? Because women at the core also have a strong need to be needed. And when I'm not needed, what am I? And it's like they feel like they're going to evaporate. So really understanding that, and how are you going to transform that into the next phase of your life. Retiring doesn't mean you're going to sit on the porch and rock in a chair. It just means you're going to go on to something different that you're ready for. But it's a dilemma for many women right now.
Yeah, and struggling with finding kind of that next chapter. And I think in particular, in terms of health goals, I mean, as Dr. B would say, I mean, women, when they went through menopause, didn't really have a plan. We as doctors didn't really have a plan for them, right? And so I think our role models in terms of how to handle menopause are drastically changing almost year by year. And I will have this conversation with a lot of women in their 40s, and we sort of basically acknowledge that the inevitable is coming, right? That our bodies will go through natural aging and go through menopause. Thank God we have women now, in their 50s and 60s, that are spending some time and kind of have demanded to know more about menopause and what the next steps are. So I feel internally grateful that I have a lot of women that are out there doing that for me. And I can acknowledge that how hard it must have been without having some of these health role models to understand what that means.
Yeah. And exact same thing with the evolving into the next phase of your career is trying, and that's part of some of what I'm doing in my other work, is trying to create a group of role models of women who who do this successfully, who evolve out of their career, and they can show the next women how to do that. So kind of on that same thing, we're working on that same path.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing in terms of finding a role model, sometimes it can be really helpful from being objective to what I would say is create your like health board of directors, right? And so, you know, a lot of the times we hear so much health noise out there between Instagram and Facebook lives and your cousin and who else, right? And it can be hard to sort of know when you're deciding what your health obtainable, realistic health goal should be without sort of having a core group of people, right? Of course, here at True Women's Health, we pride ourselves in trying to be as up to date and evidence based as we can, but it can be helpful to have kind of a board of directors, so to speak, right? A group of people that you trust, that you can bounce ideas off of, and that can kind of help you understand what a realistic goal is, right? Versus sort of relying on, you know, a bunch of sort of health noise that's out there.
Well, you know, I often say to patients, one thing we do, and I don't think social media has helped this, we compare ourselves to other people all the time.
Oh my
And
heavens.
we're extremely critical of ourselves. And when
Yeah.
you're comparing yourself to other people, you're comparing your messy insides to their perfect presented
Oh my
outside.
gosh. Totally right.
And so
I love that description.
yeah, so you're behind the eight ball there. So that board of directors that you just talked about are people that can give you perspective, and people
Yeah.
that can say, I don't know why you think you need to achieve that and that. You've got this and this, and give you
Yes.
the perspectives, because we're so critical of ourselves.
Yes. I know. And one of my favorite quotes ever is comparison is the thief of joy, which is
Yes.
just so true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And yeah, and so I think sometimes having that quote unquote board of directors can be so helpful in terms of like health goal setting, or honestly just any sort of career goal setting,
Exactly.
sort of understanding who your trusted colleagues are in the outside world. Okay, so here we are. We have our milestone event. We have our picture of self. We're thinking about the people who we want to be. We're thinking of the people who should be part of this. So it can be so great to sort of start writing some of these objectives down, right? So put a sort of pen to paper, whatever that sort of means for you. And then taking a step back, right? And reflecting, what's preventing you from getting to this goal, right? And from overcoming this obstacle. And, you know, ask yourself, how willing am I to how ready am I to change? Right? So 10 is I'm totally in, right? I'm ready. I'm buy my gym membership tomorrow. Here it is. Here's the money in my hand. And 0 is I'm definitely not doing this. Right? And it can be really helpful to sort of get ready and see where you're at. And with each of these sort of, you know, readiness to change sort of goal mentality, it can be helpful to sort of say, you know, okay, so here I am. I'm going to exercise, like I said, and I'm going to give this a 6. Why is it a 6? Why not a 7? Right? Why not a 5? What's leaning you in one direction over another? And sort of seeing if that can be a helpful way to sort of really put pen to paper around some objective measurements. And it can be totally fine to say, you know what, I would love to eat healthier, but right, here I am, I have 3 kids, a full-time job, you know, no maid at home, and this is closer to a 0 than a 10. And that's okay. That is okay, right? We're not asking for, you know, us to pull out miracles, right? We're really just starting to get going. And then what you do is to ask yourself, okay, the things that are 10, let's get started so that we can celebrate some of those little wins that are in the direction of moving us towards those goals.
Yeah, I think that's really, really key. And I love your point about if you're not ready, asking yourself why and identifying that. And not a critical, why the heck aren't you ready?
Yeah,
But
like, oh, Dr. Egan, you're never ready.
Yeah, right, exactly. Not going down that path, but
Right.
what's really going on? And it may uncover some things. For a lot of people, when they get stuck and they can't move forward, it's fear.
Yeah,
And
totally.
fear can hold us back. And then you ask yourself, well, what's the worst that can happen? And what will I do
Right.
if the worst that can happen happens? So
Yeah.
challenging that.
Yeah. I sometimes think this can be really helpful when thinking about relationship goals, just because, the relationship goals are interesting, right? And some of us don't even think about it. We just know we don't like where we're at, but we're not really sure where we want to be. And so sometimes it can be even helpful to do this together, right, with your partner, and understanding like, where do we want to go, right?
Yeah.
And what does, the next year look like in terms of our relationship? And it could be nothing. We love it. We're awesome. Or it could be, I don't know, maybe we want to spend more time together. What's blocking that?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
understanding sort of what that means.
That's fine. I'll piggyback on the relationships. Relationships are about negotiation and renegotiation. I actually have a sampler hanging in my dining room that says love, honor, negotiate. Because I've learned in years of clinical practice, it's, they joke about the 7-year itch, but we go through developmental stages our whole life. We don't stop developing when we turn 21. And so your needs at 45 are different than your needs were at 30, and you have to renegotiate with your partner. So having that goal setting conversation with your partner helps highlight where we're both at and what we're both expecting of each other now. It's a really healthy thing to do.
Yeah. So interesting. And I also think that it can be really helpful even talking out loud about our health goals with our partners, right? So I can't tell you how many times that I'll talk to him about losing weight, and we talk, oh, yep, we got it, where we need to be. And we do some follow-up, and it's real tough to turn on cookies if someone has them out all the time. Right.
Right.
And so it can be helpful to do some health goal like review and setting, even just with your partner there, of saying like, what are your health goals? What are mine? Do they overlap? Right. And you may find that a lot of times they do. And in terms of negotiating what you guys can do together, it may be a lot easier. Right. And it may be easier to say, look, together, right? I'll even use my husband and I as an example. Together, we've talked about just like getting less takeout, right? Because we know that we don't need it and it's not particularly healthy for us. And, but it's so much easier to do it when it's sort of this joint decision versus me sort of feeling guilty that I'm somehow holding him back from his amazing takeout. So,
right. Yeah. And you're
so
right. They've got to know what you're trying to accomplish to support you.
100%. And it's always trying to do it in a loving way. Right. And that's really where we know that a lot of barriers can come up with doing this with your partner, because we really do want it to be well-intentioned, but sometimes it can be helpful to do this together if you feel like you guys, are good communicators. Okay. Lastly, it can be really helpful. So here we are, we have our goals, we're ready to go. Thinking about maintenance, right? So what does this look like down the road? How do I want to celebrate some of my small wins in terms of, what does that look like? For a long time in the 1990s, right, it was like the diets. And if you just like did a diet for 12 weeks and you lost your 20 pounds, then everyone would go out and celebrate with like milkshakes and ice cream sundaes because they did it, right? It was, I can like definitely remember this from my childhood of like hearing people being on diets. And we know that that's no longer what we do now, right? It's that you have to make lifestyle changes, and it's really changing the whole way you eat and learning how to incorporate some of these things in small amounts and all that jazz. So what do you think about small kind of wins, Mary Jo?
I think that's huge. I think it's really, really important because those small wins give you that opportunity to celebrate. You feel a little success, and then you're motivated to go to the next step. If you're always only looking at the end goal, it's going to be really, really difficult to stay motivated on all the steps in between. And, we are behavioral creatures. We need reward. You wouldn't, even if you love your job, you really probably wouldn't do it if you didn't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. You need those rewards to keep going. If you never had them, you'd burn out. And so again, it's understanding what are the rewards that work for you. And not a counterproductive reward. So,
And I know you were saying you gave a story about graduations. Yes. And I definitely know, and I'm just going to repeat it for you. I mean, like you said, if between kindergarten and high school, right, if you didn't have some small wins and graduations, like none of us would go. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the amount of school I went to, if I didn't have a graduation party every once in a while, I don't think I would have made it all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, in kindergarten, it starts out, you get cookies and milk after an hour and a half of being in class. And then they stretch out the timeline as we get older and we can handle more. But there's still those little rewards. I'll confess, I remember being in college and saying to myself, okay, if I get through these 2 classes today, which are killer, I'm going to have a Snickers bar. So I was 18. I could get away with that then. But I would. That would be sometimes it was just getting through the next couple hours. Sometimes you've got to break them way down.
Yeah. And that can be okay. Sometimes I think, particularly when we're thinking about major lifestyle changes, like, I don't know, I'm never going to have dessert again or something of that aspect, or I'm going to work out for every day for the rest of my life. You know, I think it can even say, you know what, that's why I love the Milestone event. It's just like, let's just get to our vacation, right?
Yeah.
Let's just, right. We're going for walks on my vacation. Let's just get to, how do I move more for my spring break vacation? Right. And just starting there versus being like, how am I going to like work out for every day the rest of my life? I mean, that can just feel so daunting of a task.
You know, I don't know if you have a smartwatch, but I have a smartwatch. I have an Apple Watch, and every month it sets up a new challenge, and so that's where I do my little milestones. And I'm so motivated by charts and graphs and things like that. But when I win the monthly challenge, I'm just like, success! I've achieved it. So some of that, you can take advantage of some tools that can help you build in some rewards if you have access to those types of things. And again, competing in challenges with other people gives you some of that intrinsic reward as well.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so we're going to do our 5 take-home tips. All right, tip number 1, not surprised. Start with your milestone event, your picture of self. Friends, even if you don't see us in the office, just do this for yourself. It's so helpful. It's such a great sort of beginning of kind of where you want to be as a woman and where you see yourself. And it doesn't even have to be health oriented. It can be just sort of a great place to get started. All right. Number 2, as we were just saying, starting with small goals, right? Pick these small goals. And, you know, whether it's an Apple Watch or just sort of some basic stuff that we sort of help guide you on, just start with some small stuff and really enjoy that satisfaction when you kind of complete it, and if you don't, sort of readjusting, which can be fine too.
Yeah. And celebrate those.
Yeah. 3, know some of your barriers, right? And of course, everyone at our office, we all want all of our women to know, what is your phase of ovarian function? And, you know, why we bring this up, because, you know, we're hinting at weight and sort of, you know, as you get older, it gets harder, but that's a real thing that's happening. And sort of to know where you're at in terms of your phase of ovarian function can really be a barrier to sort of getting to where you want to be. So for instance, if one of your goals is getting amazing sleep, but you're in the throes of menopause and having hot flashes, you need to know where you're at, friend. Right. And that's what we love helping women figure out from a medical standpoint of, where are you at in terms of your phase of ovarian function? Are there any medical things that are going on in your body, whether it's some sort of disease process or natural hormonal changes that are happening that are creating some barriers for you that are preventing you from getting to your goals? So it can really be important to sort of know where you're at from a medical point of view, but then also being honest about some of the other barriers you have in your life. You know, I think a lot of the times when people come to see our, you know, Mary Jo or one of our other therapists named Ashley, I mean, sometimes it can be honest to say, you know what, I struggle with commitment, right? I, for some reason, can't stay in a relationship, right? And that can be an okay place to be, because you're going to be in therapy and working on it in therapy.
Exactly. I saw a new patient, Dr. Egan, on Monday, who you had given her this advice. She said, I've been in therapy 5 times. I always go to 5 sessions, and then I start befriending the therapist and avoiding the real deal, and then I drop out. And you said to her, tell that to the therapist in the first session. And she did. So she was aware of her barriers to treatment, and then chose to expose them, and so to have some accountability for it. So yeah, that's a real good, knowing your barriers, and then how do you overcome those?
We are human beings. We all have, whether it's outside barriers, right, where your socioeconomic status is, where your career is, what you have with your kids and your husband, or whether it's inside barriers, right? What things do we have as blocking us from being the best of us that we can be, right? We all have something that's there that's sort of preventing us from getting to where we want to be. And it's really on us to sort of kind of own it and then figure out what we can do to help it. And that's why we have therapists so intricately involved in our practice because we really think that that's so important to sort of help women figure out.
Yep. Helps it go full circle.
Yeah. Number 4, get your board of directors. Who are these people in your life, right, that you trust? Of course, here at True Women's Health, we love to be one of them. We love giving women information. That is our MO of main motivation, is getting women together to get them inspired to get their own health together. So we, of course, love doing that. But, you can really reach out to other people, trusted friends and family members. I wouldn't rely as much on social media. Sometimes that can get a little hairy, but you never know. You may find someone. Of course, if you're watching our True Instagram talks, which we love doing, that can always be helpful.
Yeah, that's different than general social media.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, obviously, so no social media except for us, right?
Right. There you go.
Yeah. All right. And number 5, probably the most important, be self-forgiving, right? We all have these lofty goals. We all are such amazing, amazing women, and we may not get to all of them, and that's okay, right? We'll start again. We'll pick another milestone event. We'll pick another picture of self, and we'll sort of see where we're at. And those things can be okay.
I love that. If you were perfect, you'd be a robot, and robots don't experience joy, elation. They don't experience any of that. So be grateful that you're imperfect. Be grateful that you're not a robot. Be grateful you have flaws and you're going to make mistakes. That's what makes you human and able to experience joy.
Mary Jo, I've seen one of my favorite things about being a doctor, right, is I had all these preconceived notions about what a doctor does and who people were, right? And one of my favorite things about being a doctor is I can almost promise you, I swear, I don't think I've ever met a lazy woman. Like, everyone comes in, they're like, I'm so lazy. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think so, friend. Like, you're awesome. You're trying your best. You're well educated. It's just that women are being pulled in so many different directions.
Right.
Right. And we're all being so awesome that it's tough. So we get it. We're right there with you. Be self-forgiving if it doesn't happen. Let us help be some of your guides if you're struggling, sort of understanding what this means, or if your barriers just seem too complicated to work through. And we love to see you here at True Women's Health if you're in the area. Oh, Christina, love these live meetings on real topics that matter. Oh, we're so grateful. Thank you. We keep trying to present women with kind of real information that we hear in the office that we really believe in are important and helpful. So on that note, Mary Jo, anything other last tips before? Oh, and I got to True Women's Health. If you're interested in seeing us, check us out at truewomenshealth.com. We always have such interesting information that's on there. So in addition to following us on Facebook or going on Instagram, we have new information all the time. And so one other thing I wanted to say is, in this effort to be sort of self-forgiving, we actually posted some stuff about deep breathing exercises that every woman should do. It's part of our C's, is that mind-body connection. So in the comment section, check out our information about the step-to-step guide on meter breathing. If you really are struggling even to kind of get to that place, that can be really helpful. As always, to all of our patients, we love being with you on Wednesday nights to sort of talk about different topics. And you know where to find us if you're in the state of Michigan and you need a doctor. Thanks so much, Mary Jo, for having a conversation with me tonight.
Yeah, happy to do it, Dr. Egan. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.